Alright guys, that's Kremp again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Dashy confirms he's not at all happy with the way the pros have acted over the last few seasons when it comes to gentlemen's agreement. It's a big discussion point every single year, not least this year as well. The snipers, the movement, many other things that have changed over the last few seasons, and Dashy reckons that often this has been targeted at trying to shut him down and prevent him being the player that he could potentially be. And how does that lean into Black Ops 7? That's the key talking point from some of the OpTic guys. How is it going to affect the rest of this season, going into next year as well? Dashy's now achieved the World Championship victory that he was looking for last year, so what could it mean for the future as well? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. I'll quickly mention before we start here, I'm not sure I've ever really seen the scene like this going into the World Championship. Basically nothing has happened over the last 2 weeks. And there is still things going on. There's things that we can find to talk about that try and keep the scene interesting here going into the World Championship. But I will say that it is a challenge, and that's okay. I think I obviously read your comments and stuff. I think the plan will be for me, if there's not that much that happens on a day, I won't make 2 videos, I'll just make 1. That's probably what I'm going to do today. I'll keep things going into the World Championship. There are things happening, but it's like there's not necessarily enough to justify trying to find every, looking under all the rocks and crannies to find stuff to talk about. I'll do 1 video a day, and probably to keep the voice in the head happy, I'll make 2 on the F1 channel instead. That might be the strategy over the next few days. But I want to keep the intrigue and the attention and the interest up going into the World Championship, but it's kind of difficult when nobody's playing 8, nobody's streaming really, and there isn't much content coming out from that, and also we don't know what's going on behind the scenes right now in scrims either. So there are a few things going on, there are some interesting things being said, and there are some big battles coming up at the World Championship for sure. Champs, okay, today's the 16th, that is the Monday. It's not this weekend's Champs, it's next weekend, so it's getting close, but it's not close enough, and it's not maybe like the league themselves are really doing much to bring the energy for the tournament. This is a video that aBeZy put out a couple of days ago. It's no longer 16 days until Champs, of course. It's actually, it's like 10 or whatever, but still, so we're getting there. We are getting there, but it's obviously not been ideal over the last couple of weeks, let's say. I think last year, at least, we had some sort of roster drama going into Champs because the teams that didn't make it, there was EWC looming in the background. That's not really the case this year. None of the teams that potentially are going to make changes have done so. I'm expecting, though, after Champs, things to get real interesting, and potentially things to get real interesting after the World Cup as well. But let's talk about a few interesting things that did happen yesterday. The Los Angeles Thieves team, since breaking up, they've done a few things. Drazah's won 4 chips in his time since leaving the team. Envoy's won 3. Kenny's won 1 and a ring. And Donut Boy Octane, successful streaming career, best flank host. So, obviously a little bit controversial there. I'd treat your thoughts on that. Team head-to-head records this season. So, pretty beautiful. Well, depends if you think it's beautiful or if it's an eyesore. I find it pretty beautiful. But this is a graphic that TJHaLy Stats puts together looking at the records of the teams between one another, really. So a few interesting ones, of course, to look for. FaZe, just to look at their numbers on the top level. They have a losing record against Toronto. That's the only team they have a losing record against. Against Vancouver, they're actually 3-3. Pretty interesting. Even against Thieves, they're 4-2, despite, of course, a couple of times recently it going the other way in a very important moment. Against Minnesota, 4-0. Against OpTic, 4-0. Against Cloud9, 5-1. I will say for Cloud9, this is a point that Attach made recently. Of course, he's now retired. But he was like, damn, I was playing FaZe every week, and it does feel like that, I think maybe that's the takeaway here, is that this season, FaZe played LAG twice. They played Cloud9 6 times. Now, sometimes that's just how the bracket goes. But, I don't know, sometimes it feels like they just happened to, I don't know, Cloud9 feel like they got kind of hard done by, because Cloud9 also played Thieves 5 times, right? So, if you look at Thieves' teams they've played Ravens 6 times, beat them every time. Thieves have played Miami 8 times. Now, of course, a lot of that is because they keep matching up at majors and stuff, which is, that's not to do with scheduling. Thieves have also played Surge 6 times and beat them every time. So it's pretty insane, Thieves' records. But I just look back at this in hindsight. I look at that Cloud9 team and I think, damn, those poor guys were going through it, They played 11 series against the best 2 teams this year and they managed to win 1 of them. But, arguably, if they'd have played different teams in that run, they could have scored a hell of a lot more points. For example, if we look at Cloud9, they managed to play OpTic how many times? Yeah, they played OpTic twice and they lost both times again. Vegas is these records, pretty ugly, right? We'd go down there and have a look. Interesting that LAG, they had a winning record against C9 and against Falcons. And, well, everyone had a winning record against Falcons. They had a losing record against everyone. The teams they beat Falcons on the season were Rocker, were OpTic, and were Surge, actually. So everyone else, of course, it was a rather difficult time, but those are the team head-to-head records on the season. Thought this was kind of interesting as well. The 40-bomb leaderboard on the regular season, Nero actually topped it by quite a lot. Now, to be fair, this does have a part to play in terms of what maps and modes the teams like to play. Nero and that Rocket team at the end of the year, they liked to play a lot of Vault, and on Vault it is a map, Vault Hardpoint, you can drop some 40 bombs. I mean, Nero dropped near enough, didn't he drop 50? Was it near enough 50 towards the end there? Of course, Xnid holds the record. Is he still on that map? He dropped like 54 or whatever it was against OpTic at the start of the season, but Nero had 940 bombs. You're going to see a lot of SMGs here, and understandably, it's Neptune with 6. Neptune's is maybe even a little bit more impressive, probably not more impressive, but like he didn't play from right at the start of the season, right? He came in after a little while, so maybe that puts that up there. JoeDeceives at 6, Real with 5. Interesting, Real's the only player on the Miami Heretics to appear here. Shotzzy had 4, so did Scrap, Dashy, and Estriel. So it's interesting, I guess, of the AR players. It's only Scrappy and Dashy that had some 40 bombs this season. As I say, it depends a little bit on the maps and modes you're going to be playing, but there were 90 40 bombs this year, and Nero had 10% of them, so pretty impressive stuff, I would say, from him. But the drama I wanted to discuss was around Dashy and the Gentleman's Agreement, certainly going into the new game in BO7 and how that's going to look for the next, well, year, let's say. GAs, back in the day, didn't used to be so much of a discussion. They've always been a thing. I mean, probably since Advanced Warfare, the concept of a gentleman's agreement where something is not banned in the rule set officially by the league, but the pros will say, look, we don't think this is the best for the state of the game either. They come up with various explanations, and some of them aren't necessarily fair. Initially, they may well have been to say, look, we think the game plays worse with X in the game, therefore we should get rid of it. But then it becomes, oh, well, the skill gap is lower, or, and how much does the viewer intrigue factor really play a part to that? It's always a big discussion every single season. And also, I think the main issue with GAs is that they're just inherently very biased. The teams will simply choose what makes their team better, right, rather than what's actually best for the game. And they will say, oh, no, well, this is definitely the thing to do because of the skill gap or something, but everyone knows that really they're just making a decision that makes their life easier based on the team that they have put together. And everyone knows that's not reasonable, and it's the same reason why the CDL this year has basically stepped in and said, look guys, we are not going to let you choose what maps to play on. We are simply going to decide, because if the pros decide, especially mid-season changes, they will just vote on what they're good or bad at. So the league has to step in and make plays on that, and it's maybe a similar thing really in terms of GAs as well. But the thing is with GAs, the league can force you to play on maps. They can't force you to use a sniper rifle. So, that's the thing. If the pros GA something, it's not like the league can step in and say that you have to use it, because, okay, even if they force it to be allowed, then the pros can simply say, we don't think it's competitive, we're not going to use it, or we don't think it's good enough, we're not going to use it, whatever the true reasons are. So that's just my quick rant on gentlemen's agreements, and I don't think my opinion on that is likely to change. But Dashy, also pretty frustrated about the state of GAs. But going into BO7, there's been lots to talk about this. It came up as a convo again because lots of interesting things in that game. We've talked about wall jumping. We've talked about wall diving, right? We've got this kind of pseudo jetpack looking thing going on where you can wall run and then you can even dive off the wall potentially into like a barrel roll or whatever. I don't know how this is going to look, but like a roll when you hit the ground or something. I'm sure Shotzzy's going to have a bit of a field day with it. And Dashy's like, look, damn, maybe they're going to GA this stuff. They're going to get, someone's going to get smoked one time and say you can't do that anymore. Now, whether that's really even possible to stop people doing it is a bit of a question mark, but the pros probably will try. As I say, back in Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, when we first really started to talk about gentlemen's agreements on a regular basis, they were easier to control maybe, or the pros had a bit more integrity maybe than they do today. Certainly some who were playing back then would argue that. Slasher says that back in the day, the pros actually, there were some gentlemen to make agreements with. Nowadays, that doesn't seem to be the case. But Dashy says that many of the changes that the pros have made over the last few years have been detrimental to him and him specifically.
You can dive off of it? So, bro, this is going to be like...
You're while running, then you dive.
This is gonna be like a slightly like shittier version of jetpack. Not shittier version, but like
Well, you could.
It's gonna
It's
be
like
the
a-
Omni jetpack.
Yeah, it's gonna be jetpacks, but like without a jetpacking. It's gonna be jet floating,
Oh yeah.
kind of.
You think that they're even gonna have like a jetpack, or is it
Nah,
just
but
gonna be like?
I think it's
wall
gonna
It
be
might
like,
be like a mini fucking jump boost. Like I don't know.
running? I feel
Yeah,
like they gotta have like something. There's no way
I think
they
it's gonna
add
be like a
only
double
wall
jump.
running.
Some shit to like
Yeah, I could see that.
like a perk or some shit where like you could like jump like higher, so like it'll just like make it so like whenever you jump off of like the like to the wall and then maybe jump
Wait,
off
so this
the
is
wall.
like a hacker literally just like fucking doing the shit? Or?
I guess.
I feel like there has to be with wall running like a little.
Yeah, they're gonna give you some shit, like, you know what I'm saying, like a you know how they have the attack sprint like or double time, they got like the sprint one for to run faster. They're gonna give you some bullshit to like either run faster on walls or like jump higher off the walls or jump higher in general. Like,
What? You're able to dive off and.
but don't get excited, because they're probably gonna GA it. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna say, bro, this guy looks insane. We got to GA it. That's what they did for me for 6 years. Yeah, M4, let's get it out. What the beginning of M4, get it out. Snipers, yeah, nobody could snipe it. Get it out.
Yeah, someone said, what even is a wall dive? And I think I had to explain it. What is this? Charlie Intel claims, or where you saw that, right? I mean, hopefully it's just good maps. So I think that's what everyone wants. Honestly, I don't think people care about like anything else other than the maps at Good
uh,
this point,
uh,
bro.
oh,
Good maps. That's it. They're just good maps, good guns, and we're good to go. No bullshit.
So he's talking about the M4, he's talking about various things that they've changed over the last couple of seasons, but also this season and even the last couple of seasons with the snipers, right? That's probably been one of the big ones, starting really from the Cold War season. Now look, were snipers really good in Cold War? Yes. Did they have aim assist? Yes. You know, many of the, and also the smokes are a bit problematic as well. You know, the pros come up with various reasons, and some of them maybe are justified as to why the snipers should go. The smoke is either broken or overpowered or underpowered, or the sniper has aim assist and maybe it shouldn't, because, you know, there were some jetpack games where the snipers didn't have aim assist and they were, you know, probably fairer and more balanced. But, you know, famously, I remember at the start of COD Vanguard, when the snipers weren't really that strong in that game, the pros were still kind of reeling, however, from the fact that they were banned in Cold War. And all of the pros were like, yeah, we're going to keep the snipers banned. The community effectively forced and bullied the pros into using the snipers at the Kickoff Classic. And nobody really used them. Like, we saw a couple of snipers get pulled out. Clayster got a nice little 1v2. But apart from that, it's not like it was like, oh, wow, this gun's insanely strong. But over the last few years, the pros have kind of got away with it again and banned the snipers. And in my opinion, it's largely because many of the teams don't really have a good sniper player who wants to use it. There are some teams, let's say Dashy on OpTic, Simp on FaZe, among a few other, you know, Beans would want to use it on Toronto and stuff. You know, there are a few teams that like the sniper and would want to use it. But I would say the majority probably don't. And even FaZe, I don't think are that keen, even though Simp would be insane with it if they did use it. So as a result, it gets banned. And Dashy's not been very happy about this. He's wondering what the state of that's going to be going into future seasons as well. Shotzzy, this is back in November, but he wasn't really happy about the sniper getting GA'd, even the knife potentially getting GA'd. That was a conversation back then. So intrigue to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Quick little trip down memory lane here with this card from Scump. This, of course, during the Black Ops 4 season. The 2019 World Championship, they came third in the end at this tournament. And, you know, Scump had a pretty mega... I mean, look, Scump at the end of the year always used to turn up. It was the case at this event as well. 1.27.5 when his control wasn't quite as strong, but his search and destroy was like godlike that tournament. And yeah, don't know, missed this guy competing, I guess. That's the talking point there. Of course, this was an event that he played with Dashy, right? The team was Dashy, Kremp, Scump, Karma, and TJ. Certainly one of the teams of all time, coached by TP, let's not forget. And there was so much drama just a couple of months after this happened, when Kremp came out and said that the team was so fractured internally and it was absolutely nightmare. The other thing that cracks me up about this card are the photos that they used to take. I don't understand why they used to do the lighting like this, but if you look back on the photos they took from this era, they all look like this. They lit their faces from the side. So like they had big lights on the left and the right, and then the front was like not lit. And I don't know why they did this. I don't know if they thought it would look cooler or scarier or something like that on the broadcast. Even at the start of the CDL, they used to start lighting them from just one side. But nowadays, thankfully, they do the lighting properly. But like all all of the pictures that I used to have on the thumbnail from this era, especially if I tried to crank the contrast up, would just look atrocious. So I'm glad that's gone, and we've gone back to doing normal photos again for the CDL headshots. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.